All right, let's dive right into this explainer. Today, we're unpacking a truly incredible story from our source material about resilience. It's all about how an old monk's incredibly bizarre request ended up changing a struggling young man's life forever. And this isn't just some simple fable. It's actually a profound look at the whole architecture of human determination and how we bounce back from failure.
Now, think about this for a second. We're always taught that hard work equals success, right? But what do you do when your absolute best efforts still lead to devastating failure? When you play by all the rules, give it literally everything you have, and the universe just looks at you and says, nope. Well, that is exactly the crisis our hero, Ravi, is facing as our story begins.
So this brings us to part one, the weight of big dreams. We kick things off with a 19-year-old guy named Ravi. According to the source, Ravi lived in this narrow old street, tucked away between broken houses and hanging wires. And while most folks in his neighborhood kind of gave up on their ambitions pretty early on, Ravi stubbornly held on to this dream of becoming a government engineer to lift his family out of poverty. Just think about the sheer exhausting grind of his daily schedule. Morning hits, and he's out delivering milk packets. Then he's rushing straight to college classes in the afternoon. Come evening, he's teaching math to the local kids, and at night, he's helping his mom with housework and only cracking open his books to study after everyone else is fast asleep. He was just quietly, relentlessly pushing forward, completely exhausted most of the time, while everyone else around him had long since surrendered to their circumstances.
And then, bam, the breaking point. Out of nowhere, the printing press where his father worked these crazy long hours just shuts down. No warning, no notice, just a padlocked gate. His father comes home empty-handed, and boom, the family's only steady income completely vanishes into thin air. In response, Ravi steps up. He takes on even more odd jobs, helping out in a grocery shop, delivering vegetables on the weekends. But the crushing reality was, no matter how insanely hard he worked, it was just never enough.
And you know what usually happens when you're at your absolute lowest? The toxic realism creeps in from the people around you. His friends basically told him to stop torturing himself, saying people from their neighborhood just don't become engineers. Ravi didn't even argue back. But that night, something inside him finally snapped. It didn't break his dream exactly, but it broke his hope that the dream was ever actually possible. He completely lost the belief that his actions could change his reality. Which leads us right into part two, the monk's strange request. Wandering aimlessly, feeling completely defeated, Ravi wakes up early the next morning and just starts walking.
He wanders for hours until he ends up at this quiet hill from his childhood. He sits down in silence next to an old, peaceful monk. The source describes this monk as having a wrinkled face, folded hands, and these eyes that seem to just know a little too much about how the world works. Literally seconds after sitting down, Ravi just breaks. Tears rolling down his face, he confesses that he is so tired, that no matter how hard he grinds, things are only getting worse. He's losing absolutely everything despite his relentless, back-breaking efforts. He is literally at the absolute end of his rope.
Okay, so the monk just listens gently, he doesn't interrupt, and then he gives Ravi the most bizarre test you could possibly imagine. He points to a mango tree where a pigeon is busy building a nest, and he tells Ravi to go over there every single morning and destroy its nest. No questions asked. Just do it every day for the next 10 days. Crazy, right? So here we are at part three, the unbreakable pigeon. Ravi is understandably completely stunned by this, but he complies with a strange request. On the first morning, he watches this little pigeon carefully placing tiny twigs between the branches. He hesitates, obviously, but he pulls the nest apart. He feels absolutely awful, like he's wrecking someone's home. But get this, the very next day he returns, and the pigeon is back. It's not angry, it's not scared, it's just quietly gathering new twigs and starting the whole shebang all over again. It's like watching two completely different worlds collide here. On one side, you have Ravi. His spirit is completely shattered, and he sees the destruction of his hard work as this permanent, finalized failure. But on the other side, the pigeon is totally unbothered. It accepts the destruction as just a temporary setback, and it has this unshakable focus to just keep gathering new twigs. Day after day, Ravi breaks it, and day after day, the pigeon builds. Fast forward to the 10th morning, the climax of the test. Ravi walks up to the mango tree, and sure enough, the pigeon has already rebuilt most of the nest. But as Ravi raises his hand to destroy it one last time, he freezes. He literally cannot do it. The mechanical, daily act of destroying something so incredibly persistent finally breaks him, but in a totally different way.
And that brings us to part 4, the secret to resilience. Trembling and just deeply confused by all these emotions, the guilt, the sadness, the realization of what he's been witnessing, Ravi turns away from the tree.
He leaves the nest intact, marches straight back to the old monk, and demands some answers. And honestly, let's pause right here, because we're all thinking the exact same thing alongside Ravi. He tells the monk, "I broke its nest every day, and every day it came back. It never gave up." I just don't get it. Like, why force a broken young man to do this heartbreaking task? What could you possibly learn from tormenting a bird? While the monk looks at him deeply and explains that that was exactly the point. See, the pigeon knows its home might fall. It's not naive. Yet it wakes up every single morning to rebuild because it carries this one incredibly powerful belief: the absolute certainty that eventually, one day, no one will be able to break what it has built. It doesn't sit around wasting energy mourning the lost twigs. It just goes out and finds more. Then, the monk reveals something truly magnificent. He tells Ravi that life is going to keep tearing down what you build. Your dreams, your efforts, your hope. It's gonna happen. Those twigs, they are exactly like your human efforts against life's unpredictable, chaotic storms. But if you can stand up every single time and build again, eventually, you become unbreakable. Let's really let that sink in for a moment. True resilience is measured by your capacity to recover and rebuild. It's not just about brute force or how hard you can punch back in one single moment. We always picture strength as this, like, impenetrable brick wall, right? But what this source material argues is that true strength is actually elasticity. It's that simple, quiet willingness to wake up and gather your twigs again after a storm has wrecked absolutely everything. As the monk finishes his lesson, he puts a hand on Ravi's shoulder and gives him these 3 life-changing reminders. First, no bad time lasts forever. Second, this specific storm in his life, the lost jobs, the poverty, it will pass. And third, and maybe most importantly, he tells Ravi that even if the whole world doesn't believe in his dream, he still has to. And hearing that massive knot of anxiety in Ravi's chest finally unties. Look at this internal shift. It's a total game changer. Ravi walks home slowly that day. Now, did his bank account magically grow? No. His external reality is exactly the same. He doesn't suddenly have money, he doesn't have support, and he is still incredibly tired. But his mindset completely transformed. He's no longer hopeless. He's walking back into his life armed with an unbreakable faith. So, as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with one final provocative question. It's something you should really ask yourself the very next time you face a massive setback or a devastating failure. The storms, they are guaranteed. The destruction of our efforts is sometimes just completely inevitable. But how you respond? That is entirely up to you. When life tears down your twigs, will you leave the nest broken, or will you start building again tomorrow? Thanks so much for exploring this fascinating story with me. Catch you next time.